it's such a great conversation because the tribal culture, I mean, we've talked about this a couple of times, Rodilicus, about the initiation and the uninitiated man. Like, is this kind of a thing that you take men through with some of your things? Is it a bit of an initiation process from that boy to manhood and then nurtured through that?
It is not a rite of passage program, so we don't represent ourselves as necessarily initiating men, but the things that we do are things that men would have done in our history were they initiated. So we're creating spaces for men to go away from their lives, go away from their tribes, reflect on what's going on, what's working, what's not working, and doing that in a safe space with other men. So be that in a virtual environment like Zoom, we run online men's circles, be that around a fire, or be that actually taking off a retreat into the bush. It is about separation, which is exactly what they used to do with initiation. They needed separation was the first piece. Then they needed trial. So you need to go through experiences that are confronting and that are difficult to overcome. And then you make a man. It creates a thing that's alchemized into something new. It's the old man is gone and the new man arrives. And a lot of men exist in boy psychology because they've not gone through that process of being tested and actually have an opportunity to prove themselves. And then within the cycle of initiation, traditionally, they have the return. So that's when you're welcomed home by the tribe. You're acknowledged for your greatness and you're celebrated for who you are. So all of those elements appear in my retreat, although they're not necessarily done with young boys, they're done with adults. But that boy psychology is often what gets left behind on the retreat. It's often what gets literally burnt away. We have a ritual that helps to leave what is not serving you on the mountain, and you come back having extinguished that and created something new for yourself.
One of my favorite quotes is, "The fire of self-discovery will not burn you. It will cleanse you of what is not you."
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
So that's a new term. I haven't heard that before, boy psychology.
Yeah.
So can you explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I know because I was that guy. I was, go rewind 4 or 5 years ago, and I was the man I was a boy playing at being a man. I'd followed a programming from my early years set out by my parents to go and study the thing that they wanted me to study, get married when they were wanting me to get married, get into this relationship, have this wife early. And I was blaming everybody except myself for my problems. Had a really traumatic and challenging experience of my ex-wife with mental health and suicide attempts and a lot of really challenging things, which I can get into. But out of that, I just rolled all of my trauma and all of my baggage, and I just rolled it into the next relationship and the next relationship. And I took all of those things and I was collecting crazy exes. And by the time I got to the third crazy ex, I was like, oh, it's me. I'm the common denominator here. So that shifted me from my boy psychology. And I actually went to a men's work program where they do have an initiation ritual and they do have initiation ceremony. And I transitioned from a place of blame to responsibility. And to me, a lot of men never graduate past that place of self-responsibility. So that's what boy psychology means to me.
Wow. I love that. Alex I'm probably jumping on Alex. He's about to say this, I reckon, but Dr. Hugh Len, we've watched a fair bit. I don't know if you ever heard of him or not. He's a Hawaiian and Ho'oponopono.
Ho'oponopono, yeah.
One of the things he says is, have you ever noticed that when there's a problem, you're right there in the middle of it? Which was what you were just saying. So it was, yeah.
Who's the problem? Who has the problem? It's boy psychology. Why do you reckon men struggle to get out of that in your experience, Jason? Why is it like such a hard thing when we grow up, we get these strong bodies, we do these amazing things in the world, but the psychology doesn't follow what the body's doing? What is with that?
We don't have a circle of men that are there as reference points to form an example of healthy masculinity, and we don't have a unified culture. So when we were raised in tribes, boys would have had men to follow and men to be led by, and they would depending on the culture of that tribe, can see the reference points and say, this is what is expected of me as a man: responsibility, honor, the values that are particular to that culture. And so there's the reference points. And then when you get to a place where you get an opportunity to be initiated, you get to prove that you're worthy of representing that code, of representing that honor. And so again, then you are held responsible and accountable to your decisions as a man, because you're now initiated. And again, it comes back to this initiation. Boys don't have strong, consistent, healthy masculine role models, in my opinion, in our society. We don't have a unified culture in Australia, particularly. We're a bit of a young country. We've got a bit of a melting pot. Some of our cultural aspects are great, but some of them are pretty toxic as well. So we have mixed cultural influence, and we don't have a cohesive picture of what men are really ultimately here to do in a healthy way to contribute. And because we don't have tribe anymore, we don't have accountability to a culture. We have accountability to law, but law is not culture.